you talk about how there's been a lot of UAP sightings at nuclear technology facilities.
Yes. That is why this is a national security issue, because they seem to be able to disable our nuclear capabilities. Now people say, oh, well, that's like, taking matches out of a kid's hands, and it's, well, maybe, but in Russia, there's information to suggest they actually turned them on. So, we have to be really careful with that. Our nuclear triad capability is really the crown jewels of the U.S. government. And so if a country or an adversary has the ability to interfere with a nuclear response, that's significant.
There's evidence to suggest that they turned on the nuclear facilities in Russia.
Yes.
What is that evidence?
Well,
when was that?
There's evidence that there's actually a KGB report that suggested that the one of their places was actually turned on. In fact, there's a lot. Let me be careful what I say here. So after the Berlin Wall fell, there was this brief honeymoon period between the Soviet Union and the U.S. where ex-KGB officers were sharing information with us and our government. I think that's about all I could probably say about that. But there was some very interesting information that we were able to see.
I was reading about this really interesting incident called the Colares incident.
Colares in Brazil.
I can't pronounce that. So
you did great. Colares.
Colares, which was in 1977 to 1978. And it sounded like a UAP incident that was witnessed by hundreds, thousands of people.
It was investigated officially by the Brazilian military under the command and control of a 4-star general named General Uchoa. And he has explained before he passed away that even his own military personnel had been attacked.
By
UAP.
And what did they see? What did they document see?
Oh my goodness, a whole litany of things. A lot of the locals recall being terrified by these things being pursued by them, almost being like a laser blast, if you can imagine that, or directed energy type injury. Very provocative. Some of the military personnel were injured as well. A lot of medical doctors came in afterwards to look at the locals and the military personnel, validating the presumption that there was some sort of directed energy type damage, tissue damage to some of these people. And of course, then the fear kind of escalated into some of the other, local lore of some other things. But it was very well established by the Brazilian military, who also witnessed these encounters. So it's not like just some people in a remote village. These were Brazilian military officers who also vouched for it. And I've spoken to dozens and dozens of military officers all throughout Latin America and in Chile and Peru and Uruguay. And, they all reporting, in some cases, some very, very similar encounters, not necessarily with Colares, but innocent amongst themselves. People who don't even know each other, separated by different countries, are telling me their same encounter. And the same morphology of craft, and how they would in some cases even try to engage in a dogfight and use cannons, conventional guns, to no avail, of course. And there's reports of that in Tehran incident, I believe it's 1978, the Tehran incident with an F-14 Tomcat, where the pilot, his aircraft was disabled every time he tried to engage a target. And then, I superimpose that with here in Huntsville, Alabama, we had some helicopters that we were testing, and something like 8 out of the 8 test pilots all reported UAP coming around their helicopters while they were testing them. And one even reported that he believed his helicopter was disabled, and he went into an emergency situation. I think it was an emergency auto rotation situation. And as soon as the UAP left, he was able to regain control of his helicopter.
Should we be worried about this?
No, I don't think worried. I think we should be concerned because, look, from a governmental perspective, to determine this, and this is why I always say this is a national security issue, but not a national security threat. And there's a reason why. So there's a very simple calculus to determine if something is a threat. It's capabilities versus intent. We have seen some of the capabilities. We have no idea the intent. No clue. So we don't know if it's a threat. And let me give you a little analogy here that might help kind of put this. I use this analogy a lot to help illustrate what do I mean. I'm sure you live in a lovely home. Let me ask you the question. Do you lock your front door before you go to bed?
Yes.
Okay. And you know what? I do too. And I think most people, we don't expect anything bad to happen, but just out of precaution, right? And some folks may go the extra mile and decide, I'm going to just make sure the windows are locked once in a while. And you know what? I might even turn the alarm on at night because I can. Let's say you wake up one Sunday morning to have yourself a nice hot cup of tea or coffee, and you walk downstairs, and all of a sudden, as you come downstairs one bright morning, you notice size 12 muddy boot prints on your living room carpet that were not there the night before. Now, no one's been hurt, nothing's out of place, but despite you locking the front door and checking the windows and turning on the alarm, there are now boot prints in your living room floor that were not there the night before. My question to you is that a threat? My response is, it could be if it wanted to be, so we should probably figure out how it's getting into the house. This is kind of the same analogy of these things that can come in unimpeded, unchallenged into controlled U.S. airspace, over sensitive military installations, potentially interfere with our nuclear equities and capabilities. We should probably figure out what these things are.
With everything that you know in mind and everything you've witnessed and seen, if you had to argue against yourself, if you had to argue the case against everything that you believe, so make the case that UAPs don't exist, what exactly would you say?
Well, you can't say they don't exist. We're beyond that. They're real, whatever they are. But I could make the argument that it's foreign adversarial technology. It's Russia, it's China, right? They have leapfrogged us technologically and have been able to execute this plan wonderfully. And then the other option is that it's all a grand hallucination. So let's go down each argument. Let's go down the fact that maybe this is, Chinese technology, Russian technology. After all, the Chinese did send balloons over our northern continental United States, spy balloons, and, for who knows how long, and we never did anything about it and tracked it. That means that for the last 70 years, some country has been able to create a technology in secret that's so far advanced of anything we have, and, by the way, deploy it over the continental United States for 70 years. Completely non-attributed. Now, where were we 70 years ago? Well, we're on the heels of World War II. We had just broken the sound barrier, and we hadn't made it into space yet. Where was China? In the middle of a famine. Where was Russia? No better than we were. So if this was Chinese technology or Russian technology back then, because we had the data to show it goes all the way back, this would be the greatest intelligence failure this country has ever faced, eclipsing that of even 9/11. Because despite the billions of dollars in the 17 intelligence organizations over 70 years, there's not a trace that these countries were able to develop this and fly over our country and do what we're seeing. So that's option one. Also, temporally speaking, that type of technology didn't exist back in 1950. 1948. Not by us anyway. So that would be like going into King Tut's tomb for the very first time in the 1920s and looking in there and all of a sudden discovering a fully assembled and functioning 747. Doesn't make sense. Egyptians didn't have the technology back then, right? So let's go to the other option. So that would be the huge, biggest intelligence failure that this country's ever experienced, and that's not a good option. And very, very unlikely. So the other option is, it's a mass hallucination. Everybody's crazy. So let's go down that rabbit hole for a second. So some of the best and brightest in our intelligence community and our Department of Defense are Top Gun trained pilots who are trusted to fly live munitions over cities, populated cities, fight and win wars on our behalf. Men and women who have their finger literally on the nuclear button. They're all crazy. They're all absolutely certifiably insane. We've got a bigger problem on our hands than UAP.
What percentage of them have made reports of UAP?
It's hard to say percentage because you don't know, because the ones that don't report, there's no way to measure, right? You only know the ones that do report. So there's no way. Now, we can tell you that people more are reporting because they feel that it's safe, that they can report. But we don't have any metric right now that tells us who's not reporting because they're not reporting.
When we think about this hallucination rationale, I remember many years ago, and I think it was in relation to physical hallucinations. I remember ghosts and things like that. Yeah, it was in relation to ghosts. Someone said to me, they said, if really extremely improbable things never happened, then that would be a miracle. because just like the nature of probability means that most sort of predictable things happen most of the time. And then as you get down probability, there's this one side of it, which is highly improbable.
Bell-shaped curve.
Yeah, exactly. So like on the bell-shaped curve, this side of it is extremely improbable things. You know, what's the extremely improbable example? We start talking about Andrew Huberman, and then my phone rings and it's Andrew Huberman. And we go, oh my God, what are the odds of that being Andrew Huberman? We were just talking about him. And the issue there is we've spoken about many people and the phone never rang. But on the one time it does, we connect the dots in hindsight and we go, that is a miracle. And we attribute meaning to that. Is it not possible that, you know, if there's thousands and thousands of these sightings, there's also billions of non-sightings? So on that bell curve of probability, these are just the unexplainable, highly improbable 1,000 incidents of, you know, maybe there was something on the camera, maybe there was some
ball lightning, atmospheric anomaly. But the problem is we're going back to the idea that there are multiple sensor systems collecting the same information at the same time under the same circumstances, right? This isn't just one person like your call. Oh my gosh, out of the blue, the guy calls. You've got multiple platforms reporting the information at the same time simultaneously, right? So it's not just, oh, well, I saw an atmospheric aberration. The radar's picking it up. The gun camera's picking it up. The FLIR's picking it up. And another radar system's picking it up. And another radar. And by the way, other capabilities, which I can't discuss here, are also picking it up. So it's a real thing. Now, could it be a Russian rocket on reentry that happened to use up all its hydrazine and now the booster rocket is burning up? Yeah, but then you don't have these 90-degree turns. You don't have 180-degree turns. You don't have something coming in, sitting at 80,000 feet, then dropping right above the surface of the water, hovering 50 feet, and then popping right back up again that you can measure. It's quantifiable and qualifiable data.
Is that you referring to what they call the Tic Tac incident? Is that what that is as well?
So the Tic Tac incident that's not the video from the Tic Tac, but yeah, the Tic Tac incident are these objects that were detected. At one point, one of the operators said it was raining UFOs. So the SPY-1 radar can detect a baseball-sized object at 80,000 feet. Okay, so very, very capable. You had E-2 Hawkeye.
What's that?
It's an air platform. It's an aircraft. It's a flying radar system that we use to provide combat support, air support, and combat control for aircraft. So you have the Aegis-class destroyer. It's basically like a Ticonderoga class, I think. You have the USS Princeton with the SPY-1 radar, one of the world's most premier at the time radar systems on the planet. You have the E-2 Hawkeye also picking it up on radar. Then you have the aircraft that could pick it up on radar. Then you have the eyewitnesses picking up on radar. Then you have also the footage, the FLIR footage, picking these things up as well electro-optically. So you're talking about something that is at 80,000 feet, then within a blink of an eye has the ability to drop down to 50 feet and then go right back up again instantly. And it's all being verified by various different sensor systems. Now, in this particular case, I'm convoluting a little bit because the pilot's incident confirmed the Tic Tac, but they didn't see it dropping out of 80,000 feet. So I'm kind of putting it all together to make it a little easier for people to consume. But the Tic Tac incident wasn't really an incident. It was incidents over a protracted period of time in the early November timeframe. So it wasn't just one incident. There are multiple incidents, but it's referred to as the Tic Tac incident because the pilots actually reported seeing this white flying, what's been described as a lozenge, what's been described historically as a white flying butane tank. In this particular case, it was described as a white flying Tic Tac, like the breath mint Tic Tac.
And they saw it go up, down on radars and systems like that.
Oh yeah, they saw it up and down on radar systems, and then the pilots actually saw it zip away and bang, disappear over the horizon. Only later on, within a few moments, to be picked up on radar again, 60 miles away at their cap point, where they're supposed to rendezvous next. So you're talking incredible speeds, incredible hypersonic velocity, instantaneous acceleration, low observability, all the anti-gravity, all the observables. And that's just one. That's just one that's publicly known. There's a lot more of these things that have been happening.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.